Hello chess lovers, let's have a look at a very dramatic game played by Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa and Semen Lomasov. The game was played at World Junior Championship 2017 in round 10. This game is quite a long one and I will go quickly through the opening. Praggnanandhaa started with knight f3 and d5 by Lomasov, g3, knight c6, d4, bishop f5, bishop g2, e6, white castles, knight b4 attacking the pawn on c2 and white is playing knight a3 protecting the pawn, knight f6, bishop f4, bishop e7, c3, knight a6, queen b3, queen c8, c4, c6, rook c1, black castles, and now white is playing knight b1 bringing into the game this knight, h6, knight c3, rook d8, knight e5, knight c7, rook d1. The position is closed and we see a lot of maneuvering by both sides. Bishop d6, c5, white is closing the queen side and now white can play, for example, queen a4 and advance this pawn. Bishop f8, queen a4, knight d7, knight d3, g5. A very ambitious move by black, which is of course weakening the king side, and later we will see in the game that black is starting to face a lot of problems. Bishop e3, and not waiting white to push this b pawn, black is playing b5, closing the queen side. Queen a5, of course if you capture on b6, then after knight takes b6, black knight can jump to c4 square and suddenly black pieces are getting activated. That's why after b5, white played queen a5, queen a6, queen b4, queen b7. Black wants to bring into life this a5 idea, and again white is playing queen a5 blocking the pawn. Looks like white is in a mood of drawing the game by repeating the moves, but black rejected the offer and captured on d3. Rook takes d3. Now comes e5, b4, e4, rook d1, and now comes a stronger response by black, knight b6. Activating this knight by bringing it to c4 square. Now white can't capture on b6 because after a takes b6, the queen is trapped. After knight b6, we see queen a3. Now comes knight c4, queen b3, a5, b takes a5, and overlooking white's next threat, Lomasov captured on a5 with a rook. It was better to capture on a5 with a knight, but after rook takes a5, probably black missed this beautiful tactical shot, knight takes e4. Now if d takes e4, then white can capture on c4 using the fact that the pawn on b5 is pinned. After knight takes e4, black played bishop e7, knight d2, getting rid of this strong knight, queen a8, rook a1 protecting the pawn, knight e6, knight takes c4, b takes c4. Now black is getting a very strong passed pawn on c4, queen c2, bishop f6, bishop h3, king g7, a4, rook b8, bishop takes e6, f takes e6, bishop d2, which is a very provocative move, and black captures on d4. White is capturing on a5, and after bishop takes a1, bishop c7, rook b7, white is capturing on a1, and after rook takes c7. White queen can now exploit the weaknesses of the king side. Queen c3 check, king h7. A better move was placing the king on f7. And in case white plays queen e5, already the pawn on e6 is protected. But after queen c3 check, we see king h7, queen c2 check, king g7. Here the players repeated the moves, and after king h7, again of course it's not too late to play king f7, Praggnanandhaa played queen e5. Lomasov played rook a7, but it was important to play rook e7 protecting the pawn. But after rook a7, suddenly black's position is collapsing. Here comes queen takes e6, rook takes a4, queen f5 check, king g7, rook b1. White is not going to exchange the rooks. Later this rook can be very useful. c3, queen e5 check, king g6, queen takes c3, queen e8. And now Praggnanandhaa missed a very simple winning line. Can you find the winning line for white? He played e3, protecting the pawn, but actually rook b7 just asks itself to be played. White is just penetrating black's camp. If, for example, queen takes e2, then queen g7 check, king f5, queen h7 check, king f6. This is a very simple line. King e5 and then rook e7 check, winning the queen. But after queen e8, Praggnanandhaa played e3, rook c4, queen a5, queen e4, rook a1, queen e7, queen a8, rook takes c5. And now comes a strong move by Praggnanandhaa, h3. Looks very logical. White wants to play rook a7, and in case black plays rook c1 check, white is securing the h2 square for the king. But it turns out that after queen e6, we don't see that winning rook a7 move. Why Praggnanandhaa? This is just a riddle why he didn't play rook a7. Instead, after queen e6, he played queen f8, queen f6, queen g8 check, queen g7, and the players repeated the moves, and after queen e6 check, queen f6, queen g8 check, the players agreed to a draw. Actually, the threefold repetition is after queen g7, but in here the players agreed to a draw. But it turns out that even in this position, after queen g7, a few moves earlier, white could play queen a8, threatening to bring the rook to a7 square again. But we can see that Praggnanandhaa had different ideas, and he was just not going to go for that rook a7. If queen f6, then rook a7. If rook c1 check, then king g2. If queen e6, then king h2, not allowing any checks. And after rook c4, for example, white can play queen f8, targeting black king. If queen f6, then queen g8 check, king f5, rook f7, and again white is winning. And of course, this win could bring him closer to creating a history and becoming the youngest grandmaster in history. But now everything depends how the games will end up in the last round. Hope that you enjoyed this game. Good luck.